The Accidental Entrepreneur is brought to you with the help of our sponsor, AWeber, the world's leading small business email marketing and automation service provider. Since 1998, AWeber has helped more than 1 million small businesses and entrepreneurs through its suite of web-based email marketing, automation tools, and education. AWeber, the best option when it comes to marketing your business. The podcast is also brought to you by the Alternative Board. Since 1989, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has been one of the leading peer advisory and business coaching organizations for independent business owners and CEOs across the world. By facilitating peer advisory boards, private one-on-one coaching, and strategic planning services, TAB helps business owners improve their businesses in ways that change their lives. And be sure to connect with our affiliate sponsor, GSM Growth Agency. They're boosting e-commerce businesses to 6 and 7 figures in revenue and cover everything from ads and social media influencers to making your website better. GSM Growth Agency focuses on taking businesses from startup success to bigger success, going above and beyond to make sure growth sticks around. They're all about cool ideas, lasting partnerships, and making your mark in the e-commerce world. And be sure to support the podcast by ordering some logo merchandise from our online store. Listen to all of our sponsors' commercials later in this episode and follow their links in the show notes to learn more about their products and services.
Most people get so awkward with the whole sales interaction and they tiptoe around it.
Yeah.
And they're just not, they lose their authentic communication. Like the average person probably has a decent way of communicating whatever it is they want to say.
In life, yeah.
Until they want something from the person that they're talking to.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the show. I'm Mitch Beinhacker, your host, and we're going to talk to Chris in a moment. We're going to talk a little bit about his background. We're going to talk about business development, which everyone knows I talk a lot about, marketing, business development, sales. Don't be afraid to be a salesperson. And if you're listening on your favorite directory, leave us a 5-star review whenever you can. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like us, and keep connecting with us. So let's get on with the show.
The information provided in these episodes is for entertainment purposes only. It is not a guarantee of success or to be construed as advice of any kind. You should always seek advice from local licensed professionals before making any decisions.
The dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with considerable initiative and risk. People often start a business without much choice, perhaps due to a job loss or just being dissatisfied at work, and they come up with an idea they just know can be successful. They become entrepreneurs by accident. That is to say, their success or failure happens by accident, not with intention. My name is Mitch Beinhacker. I'm a corporate attorney and a business advisor. You're listening to The Accidental Entrepreneur, my podcast about how to achieve success on purpose, not by accident. Join me along with our monthly guests, where we share our knowledge and help you get a hold of your business. And now on to today's episode.
Good morning, I'm Chris Jennings, and thanks for listening. I am a sales coach, speaker, helping people with better communication skills, helping businesses grow their revenue, hold on to clients, just have better conversations with clients and internally as well. I'm excited to spend some time with you today talking about how to do that.
All right, Chris. So thanks for joining me on the show. I don't remember, what part of the country are you in?
I'm in Southern California, Mitch. So
Fine.
you're on the East Coast, right?
Yeah. So it's
Yes.
10:30, 10:40 here. So it's early there. So I appreciate you getting up. I don't know if you're an early guy or not, but
I'm an early guy. No big deal. I'm an East Coaster originally, though. So.
Oh, there you go. I was talking to a guy, I think yesterday. He's in Australia, so it was very early for him.
Dude, yeah, that's a whole another level of early.
Yeah, middle of the night. So, all right. Well, thanks for coming on the show. Why don't we talk about your background, your experience in business and sales and things like that in the first half, and then we'll get into what you're doing now, advice for people. So I think sales and business development is always it's like the heart and blood of a business, but it's always difficult for people. So, is that a good approach?
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah,
okay.
Happy to.
All right. Let's hear about your story.
Yeah, so my first venture in entrepreneurialism was probably at about 12 years old, printing up a bunch of flyers, passing them out in the neighborhood that I grew up in Connecticut,
Yeah.
and sticking them in mailboxes, going, "Hey, I'd like to cut your lawn or rake your leaves or whatever."
Right.
And I remember when the first guy called me from a couple streets over, and I got a little bit of a rush of adrenaline, I think, out of it. Hey, that actually worked, and I showed up at his house and did some work for $25, which as a 12-year-old, and let me see, 1974 probably.
Yeah.
That was a decent amount of
Yeah.
cash.
It's a lot of money, right?
Right, and I did stuff like that throughout junior high and high school, a few entrepreneurial ventures in college, and then I took a corporate job right out of college. I went to UCLA, and out of college, I accidentally took a job. I was going to move to New York and get into the financial markets, but then I got a good offer from a big name company, and I thought, well, it'll be like getting paid to get an MBA, and
Okay.
it kind of was. The thing I liked about working for a large company is they invested a lot of money in me. They any training I wanted to do, any education I
They would
wanted,
pay for it. Yeah.
they paid for it 100%. They said just and they what I've noticed is large corporations invest heavily in their people because return on investment is massive. I think I saw a Wharton School of Business study that said that the average corporation earns $24 for every dollar that it invests in its employees, and
There
that's a
you
pretty
go.
good return on your
Well,
investment,
you
right?
do it. Sure. Absolutely.
And
Now you were in
but
California for school. Did your family move there, or you were in Connecticut and you applied to go to
oh,
California school?
yeah, my folks are split up, and my mom had was in California, so I moved out to UC. I moved out in my senior year of high school, from Connecticut, a small town in Connecticut, to this big in a big Los Angeles high school,
Yeah.
and where people were asking me if I surfed, and I'm not even sure I knew what surfing was at the time, and I felt like I'd landed on the moon,
Right.
and but it kind of dragged me out of my shell, and applied to UCLA as a resident. So
Yeah. So it helped a lot because it's hard to get into those schools out of
yeah,
California. That's it.
what not when I went. Listen, I
No, it
was
was
a solid B plus student, Mitch.
yeah.
So
But now, if you're applying from Connecticut, it's hard to get into the California state schools if you're not a resident.
yeah, it might.
In my experience.
UCLA gets over 100,000 applications a year
Yeah,
for
that's
4,000 spots.
yeah. I mean, that's one of the
So
problems, right? Exactly. This
yeah,
is
but
ridiculous. All right.
yeah,
So
but
I get. What can you tell me what the company was that you went to work for?
yeah, I went to work for Mobile Oils.
Sure. Right.
They at the time they were probably the sixth largest corporation in the world, and they owned a lot of stuff. And so I had a sales role out of the gate. I was knocking on doors in San Francisco, trying to get transmission shops to use mobile transmission
Oh yeah, it
fluid
really
instead of
was.
whatever they were using.
Got it. Okay. The canned oil, right?
Yeah.
Now they're in containers, but
The funny thing, when I was knocking on these doors in San Francisco, and I thought it's kind of a ridiculous job, and then one of those transmission shops said, "Yeah, we'll do that." I was like, "Really?"
well, I mean, you had a name. It wasn't like you were selling, Dad's oil.
No,
Right.
but it's always been interesting to me. Like, that is a cool thing about being an entrepreneur. Is if you have an idea and you open up your business and you start taking action, a fair amount of people might just jump on board.
Yeah, there's always low hanging fruit. Now, were you kind of thrown into it, or did they literally send you to a sales school and training and stuff before you hit the
Oh,
streets?
I
Or
was I was 7 months before I ever said hello to a customer.
oh,
Which
okay, so they did
it,
have a lot of training.
oh yeah, it was 2 months in 2 months part in California where they gave you a credit card and taught you how to fill out your expense account and taught you the basics. Then they did 2 months in Bensalem, Pennsylvania, where they did everything in their power to get you to quit. So
Yeah,
50 of us went into this phase 2 training, and including the CEO's nephew, um, and uh, and and 17 of us came out with territories.
that is not a very good.
It's
That's
exactly what they wanted.
what they wanted. I'm saying it's less than 50%. So
They wanted to, like, hey, if you're gonna find this too tough, we're gonna torture you, like
right.
keep you up all night giving presentations, prepping crazy assignments, and yeah, and it was pretty torturous. But then I had like a couple months in the Bay Area and then got my territory in Cupertino, San Jose area, Silicon Valley. I lived right next to Apple.
Yeah, the early days of Apple, right?
The early days of Apple, when Steve Jobs is just getting rolling,
right. And then you just they said this is your area, and you just had to find every shop and just knock on doors.
I started with that. Then they gave me franchises. Then I kept getting promoted. So
got it.
They gave me franchises. They gave me company stores. They put me in management roles. I was in a training and development role for them at one point, and I loved that. I loved that job. I ultimately left the company because what I found in corporate America, if you have a great boss, you have a great job. You have a crappy boss, you have a crappy job.
Yeah, pretty much true.
And that's the risk you take in any corporate setting.
Yeah, because you got to interact with that person, report to them every day.
Yeah,
so.
You depend on them to advocate for you, et cetera.
Right.
Yeah, and
so that was how long were you at Mobile?
5 years.
Okay. So you learned a lot.
Yeah, I had 8 different addresses inside those 5 years because they kept getting moved, and and every move was a promotion, and
right.
And that would have been the rest of my life. So I decided I'm leaving. I'm going entrepreneurial.
Okay.
I started shopping for businesses.
Like to buy something, to buy a business, or go into a business.
It was in the 80s. Let's see, late 80s, early 90s. Franchising was huge. I looked at yogurts places and subway stations, equestrian farms, and all these different. I looked at everything. The only thing I knew how to evaluate was gas stations and car washes and auto repair, and so that's what I bought.
Okay, well that makes sense, right? So that's at least you have some sort of a base knowledge of, you know where to buy the oil, so you had that going for you, right? So
yeah. So we opened up, a pretty lucrative car wash, auto repair, gas station in Huntington Beach.
These were existing businesses that you bought, or you started from scratch?
I bought one. Okay. Then we had it remodeled into this super fancy place. Right. But here was the problem.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a timing thing.
Tip number 1.
Okay. Well, timing.
Don't let this happen to you.
Don't let this happen to you. I bought an Exxon station the week of the Exxon Valdez oil spill.
Oh, perfect. This is before it was Exxon Mobil, right? They're still separate.
This is before.
Yeah.
So talk about timing. So, my investment probably was worth half of it, what it was the week before, the week after I closed.
Yeah, people weren't anxious to come and to your shop, right?
Oh, people hated us.
Yeah.
People
that are listening, right? If you look up the Exxon Valdez spill, there was a drunk captain and he ran his ship aground. It was all oil spill, I think in the Alaskan Bay, up, right?
Yeah, it was in Alaska. And it killed
wildlife. It was terrible. Yeah.
It was terrible. It was.
So all that rubbed off on you, right?
Oh yeah. Basically everybody thought I was personally responsible for that.
Of course. Yeah. So that was not good timing. Okay.
So I fought
that. So is life, right? So is life. I mean, stuff happens. Yeah.
Stuff happens, and I had I had a great manager that was helping me. And I'm still good friends with him today. He's been very successful in the auto repair business. His name is Sam Shallon.
So this was like an Exxon franchise. Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was an Exxon franchise.
Got it. So your manager was a guy from Exxon who was like the regional guy, and you dealt with him.
No. Those are the reps. So there's a sales rep for the company, which is the role that I used to have.
Got it. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And so my plan was to open up a chain of those and build out however many I was going to do.
Right.
But the reality was I hated the business. I hated it.
These were kind of like Jiffy Lube type of places, right? You'd go and you get your oil change and do some whatever and wash your car. And
it was car wash. It was, oil changes, auto repair, convenience store. It was the whole thing.
The whole thing. Okay. Yeah. So it was like a little service center.
Yeah. And, and you could do pretty well, at each location, let's say, depending on at the time when I was looking at, what were they? What's it? Togos or Subways, any of those.
Yeah, that type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, your net profit per location was like $35,000 to
Right.
$50,000
You
if you
really
had,
don't make money unless you have a bunch of them.
unless you have a bunch.
Right.
Now, the location I had, you could make $500,000 a year per location, as long as you manage it right. And
Gross or net? Gross.
net, yeah,
Net. Oh,
you
okay.
could net that. I mean, it's
Okay.
decent money. But you had there's a lot of variables in managing right and not having people steal from you and
Yeah.
knowing
Inventory.
something about auto repair.
Sure.
So
Is that why you didn't like it? Because you just felt like you couldn't get your handle around the
I
business? Or?
I didn't know the first thing about fixing cars and still
Right.
don't.
Right.
And but I knew something about business, and so what changed it for me, and I was in this. I enrolled in a program to run a more profitable auto repair business.
Okay.
Right? Weekend program. This guy was up at the stage, and he had a very good program, and he had a lot of great ideas on how to run a more profitable auto repair business. But it dawned on me, about halfway through day one, I was like, I'm in the wrong seat. I am supposed to be on the stage, not here listening to this guy.
Right.
That's the role that I want.
Okay.
So I started a process to, I built out a business plan and started doing research about what's my next career stop going to be. And I had it, and I took this class actually about how to do what you love to do. And so you're supposed to list out all these dream jobs.
And those exploratory things. Yeah.
Yeah. Be pro football player. That's not happening. Rock star. That's not happening.
Yeah.
And then I got a little more realistic. And my top ones for realistic were newscaster.
Okay.
Right? And I thought about doing that.
But it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah. But I knew I could do it. But you have to move around and work and I had 3 little kids.
Right.
And then my second dream job was being some sort of sales marketing coach, trainer, speaker. So I ruled out newscaster, and I built a plan to open up a sales business and start coaching people. And then I was probably about 90 days into this new career, and I still owned the other business.
Okay.
And I was negotiating to buy another location, and they wanted way too much money for it. And I said, if you think yours is that, and it was close, right? 6 miles down the road from me. So I had first right of refusal on that property. And I said, if you think yours is worth that, and I'm negotiating with Mobil Oil that actually Mobil took over the franchise in that area. And these are friends of mine that I knew that I used to work with, right? When I got hired, when I worked for corporate. And I said, listen, and I was having lunch with one of these guys.
These are corporate-owned locations. Got it.
Yeah, yeah. It's this guy. If I remember his name was Dan Pornowinski. He changed his name to Dan Porter because his wife's last name was better than his last name. He thought so. I was having lunch with Dan, and Dan, I said, if you think you think that one's worth that much, you buy mine instead. And he said, would you sell it? And I said, yeah. And so he did, and I was out of it in a month.
So you basically sold yours for the price that he wanted for his.
Yeah.
Too high.
Yeah.
Okay. So good. Jumping point, right?
It was a jumping point, turning point in my career. And so now I was 100% invested in this business. I had a big monthly nut at the time. It felt big, $14,000 to $18,000 a month just to keep the lights on.
Yeah. That's a big nut.
Yeah. And I was making $3,000 a month net.
Yeah, so the math of that, anybody knows any kind of business or financial stuff, that'll leave you negative every time. But you had sales training, you could sell, but you didn't have any customers. You didn't have any clients.
I have any clients. I had yellow pages.
Yeah, right. If anybody knows what that is, they don't exist anymore.
No, I know. Well, I've written 2 books, Conversations Made Easy and The Client Retention Matrix. And I detail some of my story in those books. But I do remember, and I talk about it in Conversations Made Easy, sitting in my family room downstairs with my little kids, you're running around the back room, back in the background, and calling these random associations, asking them if they would like speakers to come address their group.
Yeah, that's how you start, right? Exactly.
Yeah, and one of them said yes, and then this water company that I called that said yes, and all of a sudden I was speaking at associations and I had clients and I never looked back, and it's been a great 30-year run.
And that's how you did it. You tried to get in front of larger groups of kind of affiliate groups that were affiliated with each other for a reason. And then you could teach them stuff.
I have always done a lot of speaking in my career, and it was some small, like some of the groups were small.
Yeah.
Like that first group I remember was a financial professionals group, and that was fine. And, and at the time I was probably doing a lot of chambers and, even Rotary clubs and little
to get in front of small business owners and stuff like that. That's what you're looking for. Right.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. And then over time that grew to where I was speaking in, more legit, larger associations with bigger businesses, and, but it all evolved. And I speak frequently now in different settings, and I've got a lot of history with it. And I've enjoyed it every time I get to speak for an audience. I was thinking about coming on your podcast today. I was like, this will be fun.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I think business development is the one area. I mean, people like calling it business development. They don't want to call it sales because it makes them nervous and uncomfortable. But I mean, you and I both don't need to sugarcoat things. We're in sales. And if you want to develop your business, you have to sell. You can figure a comfortable way to do it. Like you mentioned about your book, you don't have to be uncomfortable at it. You don't have to feel like you're taking advantage of people, but you are selling. So don't, sales drives the world. So I think that's interesting. So did you find yourself in any particular niche? Was it more like because of the business that you had been in that you were more working with, like guys who had shops, or not really?
No. It was really what came, and then I don't know, it was God inspired. Like they would just groups of industries would come. So that was like I had a water filtration company. I had a closet, in-home closet installation company. Then I had somebody who was selling telephone services. But then I got an employment service, and I started doing a lot of work and every time I work in an industry, I get to know about it, right?
Yeah, of course, right.
I'd learn about it. And so I did a lot of work for employment companies. Then I remember when this software company called me, I was like, I don't know. I didn't know anything about software until I started working for them. And then I learned a lot about software. So I worked for some software companies. And so, I have worked for a ton of employment agencies and helped those sales teams. So I've gotten to know that industry. There's a lot of industries that I know.
Right.
I worked in.
They're all companies that had sales teams that needed to sell and needed to train. Because employment agencies, you think they're like recruiters, right? Recruiters are selling, looking for people to place jobs and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And, they have to sell their services if they're going to charge whatever it is, 30% of the first year salary to a employer. Like they have to get them to agree to, pay this $30,000, $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 fee to go find them people.
Right.
So there's a definite sales element there.
Of course.
And for most people, like, as you probably know, Mitch, like most people get so awkward with the whole sales interaction, and they tiptoe around it.
Yeah.
And they're just not, they lose their authentic communication. Like the average person probably has a decent way of communicating whatever it is they want to say.
In life. Yeah.
Until they want something from the person that they're talking to.
Now they feel uncomfortable, and they make the person they're talking to uncomfortable, and the person thinks like you're trying to take advantage of them, and they don't know what the hell they're doing. And
it's the most awkward thing. It's the most awkward conversation that ever happens. And I listen to them all the time. So we tell our clients, record your calls, send them to us. We'll fix whatever's wrong in your calls.
Yeah.
And I listen to these calls, and the biggest mistake people make is they're too formal. Right? They try to be professional. They try to sound smart. They use bigger words.
Yeah, well, that's common with all of us.
Yeah. But just like be yourself. And the same thing, I'm sure you have this with guests on the podcast. And like, I'm not here to wow your listeners with my vocabulary. I'm really not. I told you already. I was a B+ student, maybe.
Yeah. Right. I'm at most a B+. And that's fine. I'm good average. But I think that's true. Like in law or in other technical professions, you tend to talk in the language that and so I'm constantly trying to remind myself when I'm talking to clients about not the word dumbing it down is not the right word, just like keeping things simple and more like down to the fact that I got to remember that the person I'm talking to doesn't have 33 years of experience practicing law.
Yeah.
and dealing with all the ins and outs. And I have to go to these seminars. If I brought a client to one of the seminars that I have to attend from a CLE standpoint, they would be like, I don't even know what this person's talking about. So, I wonder if they communicate with their clients that way. But I mean, I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people make, is that they feel consciously or subconsciously, right, that they have to impress people, right, with what they know, when at the end of the day, they're just vomiting all over people and they don't know what you're saying anyway. So they're not impressed. They're just confused.
Yeah. And I would say the core cause of that is just a lack of confidence.
Yeah, I would agree with that. 99% of
people
it's just a lack of confidence.
Lack of confidence, a lack of feeling comfortable with themselves, being themselves. And when you get, because the interesting thing is, you'll probably even notice it with a client. After you work with a client for a while, you get a lot more authentic if you could just be that way from the very beginning.
Yeah, because they become your friend. You get to know them. You're comfortable. You had dinner with them. You went over for lunch. You spent time with them.
So many of my best friends that have now, like, we've gone on vacations together and games. I've traveled to their house. They traveled to my house.
You did
all started because we worked together.
Right.
All started because they hired me to do some work for them. Like that closet company guy, he was retired now, but we probably worked together, did work for 15 years, but we became great friends inside of a couple of years.
Yeah.
Right. And I have so many of my best friends today. I know because of work.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
But
absolutely.
I don't. And if you listen to me, like if somebody comes to my trainings or talks, or you hear me on a podcast, or you're just hanging out with me, at the gym, I don't talk to you any different than I do at the gym than I do if I'm at your business.
Right. You shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And people do.
And that's what I try to coach people to do, is to be more authentic and be more genuine, because that's relatable. And that's what people
it's
want.
Funny. One time we had a problem with our house, an old house we had a basement water problem, right? So we're interviewing these salespeople that would come about waterproofing your basement, right? So we talked about 4 or 5 guys. So the third or fourth guy comes and he says, you don't have to tell me if you want to, but I'm just wondering, like, what other companies you're talking about. And he was very comfortable, honest, whatever. And I said, well, we've talking to these two and we have one more coming. It's this company. He says, oh, listen, I don't know if you're going to hire me or not, and that's fine, whatever you want to do. But let me tell you what's going to happen, because I used to work for that company, and they have the worst sales pitch that you've ever seen. And he basically spent 20 minutes telling me exactly the way their presentation would go and what objections they would bring up and how they would kind of try and get you to sign up. And then they would say, listen, let me call somebody and see if we can get you for sooner, and all kinds of bullshit. This guy who came, who was clearly trained specifically by that company, to a T. Like, I mean, the words that this guy told, we ended up hiring the guy who was honest with us.
Yeah, of course.
And, and the guy, it was just, and I just felt like, and then every time I run into somebody who I know that did business with that other company, I'm thinking like, oh, they were just taking advantage of. I mean, because, they show you pictures and scare you into things and all kinds of stuff. And I'll never forget that, because we wouldn't have known really. We were a young couple. It was a new house. But not a new house, but it was a new purchase for us. Yeah. And we were scared. And we met this guy who was honest with us. And he said, that's why I left the company. And so we called him and hired him, and they were great,
Yeah. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
But he learned and got out of the company that was doing all the shady stuff,
Well, yeah. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people think that's what sales is.
Right.
Putting on a pitch, putting on a pretty face, presenting this shiny front,
right?
But real life, all any customer wants is just like what you and your wife wanted. You just want them to be honest with you,
so you can make a decent. I think sales is about helping people to make decisions that they need to make, not convincing them to do things that maybe they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, it's helping people. It's helping people find the help that they need to fix the problems that they have. That's what sales is.
Absolutely.
And sales is, in my opinion, it's a very honorable career, because you're helping you're helping people do something for themselves, not to them.
Exactly.
Right? And helping them fix problems that they wouldn't be able to fix without you.
And they say it's the second oldest profession in the world. So why don't we take a commercial, and then we'll come back, talk more about sales, and you can help us with the things you see, more other things that you see people do wrong, and how people can improve. We'll talk a little bit about your book. We'll put some links in the show notes. I want to do that for the book so people can order it after the show. Let's take a commercial and we'll come back.
Great.
Here's a word from our sponsors. Looking to market and grow your business? Or perhaps you're just getting started and want to hit the ground running? AWeber is the best choice for online email marketing and automation of your business. From maintaining a subscriber list to drip campaigns and landing pages, AWeber gives you tools and integrations that make marketing easy and fun. As our partner and sponsor, we use all their tools to promote the podcast and market our law firm. AWeber, the best alternative for online marketing. For over 30 years, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has built a thriving community of forward-thinking CEOs and business owners who want to radically improve their companies. Through unique combinations of one-on-one business coaching, participation in monthly TAB board meetings with other non-competing owners, a suite of strategic tools, and customized strategic planning workshops, TAB membership can deliver greater strength to your business and a better work-life balance for you and your family. All packaged in a streamlined and affordable service that the people at TAB invite you to try risk-free. Are you struggling with managing advertising due to a lack of time or expertise? Perhaps you're facing challenges in scaling ads for your store. Are you feeling lost when strategies have no success? GSM Growth Agency is your reliable partner in overcoming these business challenges. Feel the impact of collaborating with a team dedicated not only to short-term goals, but also to building long-term partnerships and achieving sustained success. Embark on an exciting journey to redefine the possibilities of e-commerce and create a legacy of unparalleled excellence. Take decisive action now. Follow their link in the show notes to receive a complimentary audit of your Shopify store conducted by a GSM expert. Propel your e-commerce game to new heights with GSM Growth Agency. Follow the link in the show notes to learn more about all of our sponsors. And now back to our show. All right. You heard from the sponsors. They're actually not continuing as a sponsor, but TAB, the Alternative Board. I'm a big, advocate of, creating your own advisory board or having mentors or people to bounce things off of, right? Because they can help with these types of things. They can't work with you all the time, right? They can't do that kind of stuff. So I think, I think it's important. But either way, so Chris, let's get back into it, because I think that, like you were saying, a lot of it's confidence, right? A lot of it is, thinking like, oh my God, my friends and people that I know, they won't respect me and I'll feel uncomfortable around them. So then they don't do business with their natural market because they're not comfortable. And now they're looking for people to do business with who they don't know. It's hard to do business. You want to do business with people you know, like, and trust, and you respect, and you care about. But at the same token, you don't want to lose your friendship. So I think a lot of people are torn between the two, and they really shouldn't be. And I have had clients over the years that didn't want to do business with me because I was their friend, which I think is a little silly. But I'd find them an attorney and let them go and work with somebody else. But I think, I think a lot of people have that initial perception.
Yeah, but people have all kinds of head trash or self-limiting beliefs around different experiences, that you shouldn't, like whoever said you shouldn't mix business with personal. And I always say, like, what's more personal than business?
Right.
And so to me, like, I want to be able to trust people. And so if it's somebody that I know, now, if you're brand new in the business and somebody knew you for, 20 years as a manager in a company, and now all of a sudden you own a closet repair business, I get it, where they might be a little like, I'm going to let you prove yourself.
Yeah, but even that, they might at least give you a chance, right? Hey, listen, I'm starting this new business, Chris. We've been friends for 20 years. Can I come and take a look at your closets? And if you're in the market, you'd be like, sure.
So one of my favorite strategies, I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, you got to go on practice calls.
Yeah.
And practice calls. So what I did in the beginning too is I shared a little bit earlier on some of my getting started, besides, pulling out the yellow pages and calling random strangers.
Right.
Is I just called friends that own businesses.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, I've started this thing. I'm doing the sales training, leadership coaching, and I would it would mean a lot if you and I could meet, and I'm going to treat it like you called me to potentially hire my company. I'm not expecting you to buy a thing from me, but I just need to practice going through the exchange of talking to somebody about working with us. And then I
Right.
would say, and by the way, if while we're talking, like if it turns out you want to hire us, fine, but that's not why I'm doing this. I said,
Right.
while we're talking, if you think of other people that you know that could really use this service, that would mean a lot to me if you could connect me to them.
Right. That's how you get referrals. When I started in the insurance business, I came out of law school. I was in a support role, but I also needed to make a living. So I got a license and I had to sell. Nobody would do legal work with me. I was too young. And that's exactly what the first training thing they did was you had to make a list of, 250 people you knew, and you had to hand in, you had a questionnaire that you had to go. You weren't even licensed, so you couldn't sell anything if you wanted to. And you had to go and meet with, it was a dozen people, 24 people. And I had to submit that to my supervisor. And that was the whole thing. And I did have, to be honest with you, I had some friends and some cousins that were like, but I don't need, it was life insurance. I don't need insurance. I go, I can't even sell you insurance if I want to. I just need to complete these surveys and learn and whatever. And, I gave up on them. I did, they were like, but we don't need this. Like, they're not even hearing me. So, that was, I was young. It's frustrating, but that's, like you said, that's life. People have certain perceptions of things.
Well, and it's good experience for you, right? Because you got that, and so the second chapter of my first book is called Do Something.
Okay.
And you at least did something. You got a list. You called these people.
Right.
You met with as many of them as you could. You asked for referrals to people that they knew. Like, those were actions that you take. A lot of people they're not into action. You got to get into action.
Well, I had a guy who forced me to do it. It was part of the training. I didn't have a job. I was too young to even think of the idea.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I talk to people also about keeping in touch with clients and customers and building an email list. I'm sure you talk about all that stuff too, because, why make it hard on yourself? Like, why try and do business with people you don't know? And so, but everyone's got to know 250 some odd people that really know your name. If you send an email and say, hey, we're building an email list, can we keep you on the list or whatever?
Yeah.
And they don't do that. Like that doesn't, the easy stuff doesn't pop into their head.
No. Yeah. But I mean, fortunately, like, you and I come from an era where you were forced to, and that was the only choice you had to go out and do business.
Right.
Now what's happening is, people have online marketing initiatives. They have email campaigns.
Right. There's ways to touch people without walking up to their door.
Right. And those are great services and those are great strategies, but that doesn't mean that you should exclude all the things that we were doing before.
Right.
But that skill set is atrophying in an alarming way.
Yeah. And but you know what? One of the reasons, Chris, I think is because it's hard. People are more insulated than ever before. It's hard to get through to the phone. It's hard to reach them. They just, so it becomes harder. So what is your advice for that kind of stuff? Like, how do you break through? In the old days, it was a lot easier. People would answer the phone. There wasn't texting, whatever. You could walk in the door. Now it's very hard.
It's still doable. So I have a client that I was coaching the other day, and I was listening to some of his calls. And so I went with clients that we coach, especially if I coach them personally, I said, here's what you're going to do. Once a month, you're going to record a call with a customer and you're going to send it to me, like a first call. And then you're going to send me 5 calls a month. And I'm going to tell you exactly what you're doing wrong in those calls. And then the next month, you're going to send me another batch of calls and we're going to fix every mistake that you're making.
Right. So you can see what they're doing in real time.
So when I was having the coaching call with this guy, he goes, I called these people and I was surprised they even answered. He's like, darn it, they answered. I'm not even sure what to say. So he stumbled all over himself.
Yeah.
But my point really is that 3 CEOs in one afternoon picked up their cell phones.
Really?
3 CEOs. So, we can say it's hard. We can say, nobody's in the office. You can make all the excuses,
right?
All the excuses you want. But I still want to know what you're going to do each day. So with our clients, we say, hey, you build out your top 5 activities of whatever you're committed to. You're going to make 10 calls a day. You're going to do a webinar once a month. You're going to go on a podcast. You're going to speak at 2 groups. You're going to join these 3 networking organizations, and you do those 5 things.
Right.
And if you do those 5 things week in, week out, you're going to do better. So I even there's a guarantee that we offer people. You'll like this, but I'll share one other concept. The main thing that I'm shooting for is I'm trying to get people to have more go live dialogue. Go live dialogue is just how we qualify that is it's a live conversation with a customer or prospect on a phone call, on a Zoom call, at a face-to-face, a job walk, at a conference, at a networking, as long as you're talking.
Who's some way qualified to potentially do business with you.
As long as you're talking. It could even be a referral source.
Networking thing doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
You just need, I always tell people you need 4 hours a day of go live dialogue.
Right.
You get 4 hours a day talking to people.
Real good. You'll get real good.
You're going to get real good.
That's a lot, Chris. 4 hours a day is a lot.
Hey, no complaining, Mitch. So
average, you know what? I guess you're right. If you're just in sales, that's your job, right? Dude. I also have a lot to do. I have legal work to do. So 4 hours seems like a lot to me, but maybe to sales, but not a lot, right?
Well, you're a seller doer, right?
Day, right?
You're a seller doer. So you could maybe spend an hour, maybe 2 hours a day. And the rest of the day, you got billable hours, whatever else you got to do.
Right, exactly. Right. But you're right. If you're not talking to people, then you're just preparing for something. You're not making any money. If you're really, truly in sales, right? Yeah.
So if you're full-time sales, I always tell people it's 4 hours a day. Now, you want to know what the average salesperson gets in go live time?
Oh, it's got to be very low.
It's bad. It's 45 minutes to an hour.
Oh, it's not even an hour. It's like under an hour.
45 minutes to an hour a day. That's what the average salesperson, full-time salesperson gets. So those people, they go up and down with the market. If the market's good, they have good.
Is that because they're not looking? I mean, you could look, you and I mean, look, okay, we've been doing this a long time. I could find, if I would need to have a conversation for 4 hours a day, I could definitely find people to do the business with. They might not all be qualified prospects, but people that I could have conversations with. Is it because they shy away? Because I'll tell you this before you answer the question.
Yeah.
When I came out of law school, I told you I went in with the insurance business. I was going to train. I had no sales skills because they don't teach you anything in law school about business or anything. And the first thing I had to do was make cold calls. Okay. So I'm in New York working at this agency. Awesome. I had to make 10 cold calls. My training agent came over later and he says, well, what do you think? And I said, I never, ever want to do that again. That was the most horrific experience I have ever had. And he goes, yeah, that's why we want you to do referral prospecting. That's why we want you to meet people and go through your network, because you're never going to close people who don't know you. Right.
Well, yeah, it's going to be harder. All right. So I called that water company out of the blue. They didn't know me at all. I got the sales manager on the phone. They brought me down there. They wrote me the first check that I had ever gotten for selling sales training. I have a copy of it.
That was your first customer?
My first paying customer who wrote me a check and I called him out of the yellow pages because I needed a water filtration system for my house. So I'm like, I'm just going to call these water filtration companies. And by the third one I called, I had an appointment and they hired me and I did work with that company for several years. There were people left. I did work with their companies. So listen, you can still do business by picking up the phone and calling a stranger.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And I think B2B makes it a little bit easier, right? Because they're looking for, they're benefited from you coming in, getting their salespeople to be more productive. But that's a high, I don't know if every time it would be 1 out of 3, right?
No, it wouldn't be 1 out of 3. Now, listen, I've been working for a long time and getting better and better and better on my skill sets. And that's what we do.
Right.
But you're right. The best way to do business is through referrals. So my second book, chapter 6, I have 2 books, The Conversation Made Easy and then Client Retention Matrix. Chapter 6 in the Client Retention Matrix is all about referrals. Yeah. And I have 20 different ways to ask for referrals because that, in my opinion, is the best way to do business.
Yeah, the best guys I know, especially in the insurance business, because nobody wants to buy life insurance. They don't want it. And if they do want it, they're probably sick and they can't qualify. So the best guys I know are so good during like the fact-finding portion of getting names and learning about the person's life and then saying, hey, Chris, maybe you can refer me to your brother-in-law. It sounds like you love him and we can take care of him. They're just very, very good. And they'll come out with 20, 30, 40, 50 names. I had a guy when I was young, I met, he was an older agent. He had so many referrals. They were like categorized A, B, C, and D. So I was a young guy. He brought me in and I called all the C's and D's. which
Yeah.
is good for me because
Yeah.
it was very hard.
Right.
A lot of them would hang up on me. Plus, I had people to talk to then, right?
Right.
Yeah. So he was just
Well,
very good at it. Yeah, very good at it.
So I was speaking at this group yesterday, and we have a whole program on that client retention stuff, which includes referrals. And I would say, listen, the goal should be every client you work with introduces you to at least 2 more clients.
Yeah,
And
right. Of course.
If every client you work with introduces you to 2 more clients, how much business are you going to do?
Never run out of business.
It's infinite. You're never going to run out of opportunities, and people are going to be calling you, and you're not going to have to pick up the phone and call random strangers because you have so much stuff coming at you. You can't even keep up with those opportunities.
Yeah, if people call me randomly and they don't tell me they were referred by somebody, I'm always suspicious. I'm like, really? How'd you find me? Oh, this is going to be, exactly.
So that's, that's the best way to do business. But if you're brand new,
you always start there, right? Exactly.
Yeah, you don't have a bunch of customers.
Yeah.
So you do the practice calls like I talked about. You call friends. You pretend that they're trying you. You ask them to refer you. You figure out your top 5 activities. And this is when I guarantee people, so I'm like, if I'm going to coach you, I'll guarantee you'll hit your goals if you do these 3 things. Number 1, you get 4 hours a day at go live time.
Okay.
Right? Day and down. Maybe not every day, but for the majority of the time, you get 4 hours a day on the phone or in front of a prospect or a client.
Because it's practice.
Number 2, you do your top 5 activities with, most of the time. There's going to be a bad week, you're sick, you're on vacation, but whatever those top 5 things were, you said you're going to do networking, webinars, whatever, you do those.
But they're business development activities. They should be something that's leading to doing business. Business
development activities that we agreed on. Networking, webinars, phone calls, whatever, referrals.
They vary a little bit from, but it should basically be the same. Okay.
Industry to industry, et cetera, setting to setting, personal preference. It'll vary.
Okay.
And then the third thing you have to do is every time it's not working the way you want, you have to record that call or that Zoom meeting or whatever it is.
Sure.
And send it to us and we'll fix it.
Right.
And I will guarantee you, if you do those 3 things, you will achieve all your goals.
Right.
And
sounds logical. I mean, how could you miss that? You had 4 hours of practice a day. You're doing all the things you're supposed to be doing. And just like golf, you're now listening to yourself and correcting your swing. So how could that not miss?
How could you not get better? It's impossible not to improve.
Right. The problem is people don't do it. They don't do the 4 hours. They don't do the activities. Attorneys are, by the way, famous for this because we get busy with our stuff and then we stop doing the activities we're supposed to do. I tell young attorneys that do 80% of the business development stuff and squeeze in the work in the 20% of your time that's left, because then you'll never run out of business.
You'll never run out.
Yeah, exactly. So you find you're working with newer salespeople or, more experienced guys that are would have been in the business longer times?
I have all of the above. I had a guy who called me as friends. He's like, I bought your book. I've been listening to it. Someday I want you to coach me. And eventually, he called me and I said, look, okay, I'm going to help you. And he was brand new in sales and he had like 3 kids and a baby on the way and he was broke. And I'm like, we're going to fix this. And I told him the same thing. You're gonna record 1 meeting with a client a month, and you're gonna send me 5 phone calls a month, and I'm gonna tell you exactly what's wrong. And you're gonna start, and then you do it again the next month, and he got a lot better. He's gonna make like 150, 200 grand this year.
Yeah,
right? So he can afford his lifestyle.
I would say that the successful people do things that unsuccessful people are unwilling to do. Not that they can't do. In general, there's some exceptions, but for the most part, the stuff you're telling people to do is not rocket science. They don't have to have some special degree to do. They just have to do it.
You just have to learn, like, what is it, and practice at. Like, so there was a period in my life where I did triathlons, and I did triathlons because it always sounded sort of fascinating. I had a client show up one day, he told me his training. I'm like, how do I train? How do I do that?
Right.
He said, you sign up for an event and you start training. I'm like, okay. I went home, I signed up for an event, and I started training. In my first race, man, I'll tell you, like 72-year-old ladies were passing me on the run. And it was embarrassing.
Was it a full marathon, your first
race?
race?
No, my first one was a sprint.
Yeah, okay.
And I was like,
marathons, yeah.
And I was getting passed on your left, and I kept getting passed.
Right.
But I I really enjoyed the experience. So I trained, I learned, I worked with coaches, I got into like other like triathlon clubs
Yeah.
and I improved. And I'm not a world-class athlete. You know, I'm just some guy who decided he wanted to do triathlons.
Right. Of course.
That's all I am.
It's all about the 10,000 hours, right? If you're you play basketball and you put in 10,000 hours, will you be Michael Jordan? Absolutely not, unless you have some sort of special talent.
Yeah.
But you will be a hell of a lot better.
Be a lot better.
A lot better. And if it's not like Michael Jordan didn't practice. Yeah, he put in more than 10,000 hours. So
yeah, those guys, the Kobe's and Michael Jordans and all those guys, you know, they got their 20,000 hours.
Of course.
And the thing that's great about those guys, and they kept doing it even when they were already great.
Of course. They were relentless about it. Michael Jordan would never stop and expected a lot from his teammates and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's all good advice. All right. So we're going to put some links in the show notes to the books. Maybe we can get some people to call in. If we get maybe 5 people that reach out to me that heard the episode, maybe we can give some of your books away, get them to me, get them to me at cost, and then ship them out. So if anybody's listening, I don't know when they'll hear this, but if we get contacted by 5, we'll send them out. And
we'll definitely get them free books.
Because you can turn your business around if you just do the things that you say. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah. And sometimes we just got to get out of our own way, and we got all our head trash, all our self-limiting beliefs that tell us like this won't work, or this is hard, or this is why my situation is different.
Exactly. It's not. I've talked to thousands of people in thousands of industries. It's not. And I love that word, by the way, Chris, head trash.
Yeah.
It's like you got stuff in your head and just bouncing around, sticking other things, and you're thinking about stuff all the time. Just stop thinking about it.
It's taking you down.
Yeah.
Right?
Down the wrong road.
And it doesn't need to.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, so I have one last book that I'm in the middle of writing, and then I'm done writing books. And
I've only done one. I don't want to do another one, but.
And I've enjoyed it, but I'm done. And there's something called the drama triangle. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's the victim. Somebody plays a victim. They blame a villain, and then they look for a hero or a rescuer to rescue them. And there's a lot of people who play the victim, like, the market's bad, or whatever's going on with Doge is
fault, right? I mean, that's what they say.
It's everybody else's fault. That's why I'm not successful.
Right.
And if you're a leader, the way you help people stop being victims is you teach them how to be their own hero. I've already given everybody the answer, right? Yeah. Get your 4 hours a day of go live time, do your top 5 activities. And then when it's not working, get a recording of that, send it to us or somebody you trust that you think will give you good feedback. And they'll tell you what you're doing wrong and fix it.
Yeah.
And there's no excuses. There's no reason why anybody can't do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we're starting to run out of time, but can you give me some good success stories, some things where people just went from zero to hero because they listened to what you're doing? Or
even people I've already talked about. Brandon, that guy that I talked about that called me with the 3 kids and the baby on the way. Yeah. He wasn't even covering his draw at $45,000, $50,000. Yeah. Now, this year he's coming in at $150,000, $200,000. That same guy that I was coaching at his last company became the number 1 salesperson out of 200 salespeople and started making $1 million a year. Yeah. Companies that I've worked with that, Jeff and Dave came to me when their company was a good $60 million company, that we got all their people, and they didn't have any salespeople. They were all researchers. All their researchers got good at asking for referrals. They grew to a $300 million company and did this amazing private equity deal.
Wow.
I got a whole bunch of success stories in the book. I mean, it's been a joy. Like, it's been a gift. Like, I feel blessed that I've been able to have the kind of career. I'm blessed that I'm no longer getting yelled at because of some, oil tanker wreck. It's that what I wasn't driving it. And, but that I'm helping people have better conversations, more authentic conversations, and success in their career. And it feels like a real blessing. And God willing, I'll keep going. I'm 62, but I'll give it another 10, 20 years if people still want to listen to me.
Well, it's just like anything. If you start getting good results and you start helping people and you get good feedback, your confidence builds. You feel good about what you're doing. And I'm
Yeah.
sure all the people that have gotten good results, they love their careers too because they're getting results. They feel good about it.
So I'm going to give you one last tip, and then I'm going to tell on myself too. So this is a forced behavior. I always say make your goals public, right? So
Right. Put them out there. Yeah.
put them out there. So I don't do triathlons anymore, but I have one more distance event in me, and it's a swim. And I want to swim from the southern tip of Corsica to the northern tip of Sardinia. So I'm swimming from France to Italy, across the Mediterranean. And I have one guy on my team, Ryan Cook. So Ryan and I are committed to doing this together. It's going to be next year.
Oh, you're already training for this.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm training for it.
Okay.
But now I've put it out there on in public, and I keep doing this because it's forced behavior.
Yeah.
And so that's also an example for all of you listeners out there. If there's something you really want to do in your life, put it out there.
How
right?
long? How far? So a boat must follow you, right? Because
got to have a boat.
Yeah.
Dude,
How far is it from Corsica to
it's
Sardinia?
16 kilometers, which is 9.5 miles.
Yeah. Okay.
More or less. So it's doable, right? And hey, the water there is nice if I go at the right time of year. So I'm trying to get a big enough group. I can't do this on my own.
Yeah.
My wife is freaking out, by the way. So
maybe you can raise some money and sponsor you and give money away or something.
Yeah. That's a really good idea. So I'm gonna put a little bit of that, some thought into that as a fundraiser too.
All right,
thank you,
Chris. Well, I can't thank you enough. Again, if anybody's listening, we'll give up to 5 books away if they reach out to me, or you, I guess, and we'll put links in the show notes and keep spreading the good word. My dad, may rest in peace. He died about 2 years ago, and he was an insurance salesman since 1965. Probably one of the best sales guys I ever knew. Introduced me to the great sales trainers over the years, and he taught me a lot of stuff. And that was always the thing that would hold other people back, is their inability to do the things that they needed to do, get out of their and figure a way, not get out of their comfort zone. That's what everybody says. You got to get out of your comfort zone. You can learn to work within your comfort zone, I think, right? Do the things you need to do and still be comfortable about it. That's, I think that's the big lie, is that you need to get out of your comfort zone. No, that makes you hate what you do. You agree? Yeah,
you have to find something that fits for you. But there's a really good chance that everybody, has room to grow. I have room to grow.
It's not as daunting. That's what I think. Like once you do it, that wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. They didn't throw tomatoes at me when I was talking to them, whatever.
Yeah. Like I'm sure before I jump into the water off leaving Corsica, and I'm trying to see if I can even see Sardinia, which I hope I can.
I don't think so. I don't think you can see 9 miles, can you? Maybe in a weird day.
I don't know. I think you can. It depends on the horizon and where you were at. But, I'll be nervous. But if in completing it, it'll feel amazing.
Of course.
So for any of us that develop new skills and try new things and take risks and have positive experiences and some negative ones that we learn from, like every experience teaches you something. So
yeah, of course. So all right, well, keep in touch with us. Let us know when you're going so we can.
I will. I'll post it on our website, chrisjenningsgroup.com. And for your listeners, they can come to you or they can come to chrisjenningsgroup.com, and we'll make sure they get books if they reference your show.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Chris. Take care. Let's do some credits and then hang out for a few minutes.
Got it. Thanks, Mitch.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Accidental Entrepreneur. Opening and closing music written and performed by Howie Moskovich and made to order music. For information about Howie and his music services, please follow the link in our show notes. If you like the podcast, please tell others about us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and most of the other podcast directories. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review and feel free to share our episodes on social media. If you have any questions or comments, ideas for the show, or you'd even like to appear as a guest, reach out to us by email at info@beinhackerlaw.com.
The Accidental Entrepreneur is hosted by Mitch Beinacker and produced by Beinacker Law. If you'd like to learn more about our business and legal services, you can find us on social media or visit our website at BeinackerLaw.com. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to our feed to be notified of all future episodes.